Sarah Mitchell pushed her shopping cart through the aisles of Miller's grocery store in Pine Ridge, Virginia. Her 7-year-old son, Daniel, walked beside her, chattering about his upcoming school project. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September, and the store was nearly empty except for a few other shoppers. Sarah was 34 years old, with shoulder-length brown hair usually pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain gray sweater. Nothing about her appearance suggested the 12 years she had spent in the Navy or the specialized training that had shaped her into one of the most capable warriors in the world. That life was behind her now. She had retired 6 months ago to focus on raising Daniel alone after her husband died in a car accident 2 years earlier. Pine Ridge was a small town, population 8,000, nestled in the Blue Ridge foothills. Sarah had chosen it specifically because it was quiet and safe. She wanted Daniel to have a normal childhood, far from the dangerous world she had known. Here, she was just another single mom trying to make ends meet. As they turned down the cereal aisle, Sarah noticed 3 men near the end of the row. They were in their 20s, wearing expensive sneakers and designer jackets. The tallest one, with slicked-back blonde hair, was talking loudly on his phone. His 2 friends laughed at something, their voices echoing through the store. Sarah guided her cart past them, planning to grab a box of Daniel's favorite cereal and move on. But as she reached for the top shelf, one of the men bumped into her cart hard enough to make it roll backward. "Watch where you're going, lady," the blonde one said, not even looking up from his phone. Sarah steadied the cart. "You bumped into me," she said calmly. Now he looked at her. His eyes were cold and entitled. "Whatever, just stay out of the way." Daniel tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mom, let's just go." Sarah nodded. She had learned long ago to pick her battles. This wasn't worth the trouble. She took Daniel's hand and started to walk away. "Yeah, that's right," one of the other men called after her. "Run along." They laughed and Sarah kept walking, but she could feel the familiar tension building in her shoulders, the old instincts awakening. She breathed slowly, pushing those feelings down. That wasn't who she was anymore. The incident stayed with her as they finished shopping and headed to the checkout. The young cashier, a girl named Emma who Daniel knew from school, smiled as she rang up their items. "How are you today, Mrs. Mitchell?" "Just fine, Emma. How's your grandmother doing?" "Much better, thank you for asking." This was the life Sarah had chosen. Friendly neighbors, small-town courtesy, peace. She loaded the groceries into her 10-year-old Honda and drove home to their small rental house on Maple Street. That evening, after dinner and homework, Sarah tucked Daniel into bed. He looked up at her with his father's green eyes. "Mom, why didn't you say anything to those mean guys at the store?" Sarah smoothed his hair back. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away, buddy. Fighting doesn't solve everything." "But they were rude." "They were, but we don't let other people's rudeness change who we are. We stay kind, we stay calm, and we move forward. That's real strength." Daniel seemed to accept this, though Sarah could see he was still troubled. She kissed his forehead and turned out the light. Alone in her bedroom, Sarah looked at the framed photograph on her dresser. It showed her in her Navy uniform, standing with her SEAL team after a successful mission in Afghanistan. She was the only woman in the photo, and one of only a handful who had ever completed the grueling training to earn the Trident insignia. Those days felt like another lifetime. The endless physical training, the dangerous missions, the brotherhood of warriors who trusted each other with their lives. She had been good at it, exceptional even, but the cost had been high. She had missed Daniel's first steps, his first words, countless bedtime stories. And then James had died, and she realized she couldn't do both anymore. So she had walked away from the teams, from the only family she had known besides her own blood, and started over in Pine Ridge. Most days she didn't miss it, but today something had shifted. Those men in the grocery store, the casual disrespect, the assumption that she was weak, someone to be pushed around, it had awakened something in her that she thought she had put to rest. Sarah shook her head and got ready for bed. Tomorrow would be better. Tomorrow she would take Daniel to school, go to her job at the local gym where she taught self-defense classes to women and children, and continue building their quiet life. She had no way of knowing that tomorrow would change everything. Part 2. The parking lot. Wednesday afternoon arrived with bright sunshine and a cool autumn breeze. Sarah picked up Daniel from Pine Ridge Elementary at 3 o'clock, just like always. He climbed into the backseat, his backpack stuffed with books and papers. "How was school, buddy?" "Good. Mrs. Chen said my science project idea is really creative." Sarah smiled. "I told you she would like it." They drove to Franklin Square, the small shopping center where Sarah needed to pick up Daniel's prescription from the pharmacy. The parking lot was moderately busy with the afterwork crowd. Sarah found a spot near the back, away from the main entrance. As they walked toward the pharmacy, Daniel stopped suddenly. "Mom, look, it's those guys from yesterday." Sarah followed his gaze. The 3 young men from the grocery store were leaning against a black SUV parked near the entrance. The blonde one was smoking a cigarette while his friends scrolled through their phones. "Let's just go around them," Sarah said quietly. But as they walked past, the blonde man noticed them. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by a smirk. "Hey, it's the grocery store lady. Still learning to watch where you walk." Sarah kept her eyes forward and her hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Come on, honey." "I'm talking to you," the man said, stepping into their path. Sarah stopped. Her voice was steady and calm. "Please move aside. We're just trying to get to the pharmacy." "Please move aside," one of his friends mocked in a high-pitched voice. The 3 of them laughed. Other people in the parking lot were starting to notice. An elderly couple hurried past with their heads down. A woman loading groceries into her car glanced over nervously, but didn't intervene. "You know what your problem is?" the blonde man said, stepping closer. "You think you're better than everybody, walking around with that attitude." "I don't think anything about you at all," Sarah said. "Now please, my son is with me, just let us pass." "Your son?" He looked down at Daniel, who had moved slightly behind his mother. "You raising him to be a little wimp like you." Something flashed in Sarah's eyes, but her voice remained controlled. "This is your last chance to walk away." The man laughed. "Or what? What are you going to do, lady?" His friend, a stocky guy with a shaved head, moved to Sarah's left side. The 3rd one, wearing a red hoodie, circled to her right. They were boxing her in, a classic intimidation tactic. Daniel's voice was small and frightened. "Mom." "It's okay, Daniel. Stay right behind me." "Listen to Mommy," the blonde man taunted. He reached out and poked Sarah's shoulder with his finger. "What are you?" He never finished the sentence. Sarah's hand shot up, catching his wrist mid-poke. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm, stepped to the side, and took him down to his knees on the asphalt. The whole movement took less than 2 seconds. "Hey," the stocky friend lunged at her. Sarah released the blonde man's wrist and pivoted. She caught the stocky guy's punch in midair, redirected his momentum, and used his own weight to send him stumbling into a parked car. His head hit the side mirror with a loud crack. The 3rd man in the red hoodie was smarter. He pulled out a knife, a 4-inch folding blade that glinted in the afternoon sun. Several people in the parking lot screamed. Someone yelled that they were calling the police. "Get back, lady, or I swear." Sarah's expression had changed. The calm, patient mother was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone forged in combat zones halfway around the world. "Put the knife down," she said. Her voice was different now, cold, commanding. "You don't want to do this." "Mom," Daniel's voice cracked with fear. The man with the knife made his move, slashing towards Sarah's midsection. But she had already seen it coming. She stepped inside his range, caught his knife hand, and delivered a precise strike to his elbow. The knife clattered to the ground. A follow-up strike to his solar plexus doubled him over, gasping for air. The blonde man had gotten back to his feet. His face was red with rage and humiliation. He rushed at Sarah from behind. She heard him coming. Years of training had made her constantly aware of her surroundings. She ducked under his wild swing, swept his legs, and put him face down on the pavement. Her knee pressed between his shoulder blades, pinning him effectively. The entire confrontation had lasted maybe 20 seconds. "Mom!" Daniel ran to her side. He wasn't crying, but his eyes were wide with shock. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Everything's okay." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The stocky friend was sitting on the ground, holding his bleeding head. The one with the knife was still trying to catch his breath, and the blonde man was pinned beneath Sarah's knee, cursing and struggling uselessly. An older man in a veteran's cap approached cautiously. "Ma'am, are you all right? We saw the whole thing. They attacked you." "Thank you," Sarah said. "Could you stay and tell that to the police?" "Absolutely. That was some impressive defense work, if you don't mind my saying." Two police cruisers pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. Officer James Rodriguez stepped out of his cruiser and immediately assessed the scene. A woman with her knee on a man's back, two other men on the ground looking injured, and a small crowd of witnesses. His partner, Officer Kelly Chen, went to check on the injured men while Rodriguez approached Sarah. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back from him." Sarah released the blonde man and stood up, placing herself between the officers and Daniel. "Of course, officer." The blonde man scrambled to his feet, pointing at Sarah. "Arrest her. She attacked us. This crazy woman just went psycho in the parking lot." "That's not what happened," the elderly veteran spoke up. "I saw everything, officer. These three men surrounded her and her boy. One of them pulled a knife. She was defending herself and her son." Other witnesses chimed in, corroborating the story. Officer Chen picked up the folding knife from the ground with a gloved hand, bagging it as evidence. Rodriguez turned to Sarah. "Your name, ma'am?" "Sarah Mitchell. I live on Maple Street here in Pine Ridge." "And can you tell me what happened?" Sarah explained calmly and clearly, starting with the previous day's encounter at the grocery store. Daniel stood close to her side, holding her hand tightly. As she spoke, Rodriguez noticed the way she stood, balanced, alert, professional. He had served 8 years in the Army before becoming a police officer, and he recognized a fellow veteran when he saw one. The blonde man, whose ID showed his name as Tyler Brennan, kept interrupting with loud protests. His father, he claimed, was a prominent lawyer in Richmond. This was all a big misunderstanding. That woman had attacked them without provocation. But the witnesses told a different story, and the security camera mounted on the pharmacy wall had captured everything. "Mr. Brennan," Rodriguez said firmly, "you and your friends are under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon. You have the right to remain silent." As Rodriguez read them their rights, Tyler's face turned purple with rage. "My father will have your badge for this. You have no idea who you're messing with." Officer Chen led the three men to the cruisers, while Rodriguez took Sarah and Daniel's statements. The pharmacist brought Daniel a juice box and a cookie, trying to help the boy calm down. When the statements were complete, Rodriguez handed Sarah his card. "You'll need to come to the station tomorrow to sign your official statement. But Mrs. Mitchell, can I ask, where did you learn to handle yourself like that?" Sarah hesitated, then said quietly, "I was in the Navy for 12 years. Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Special operations." "Yes." His eyes widened slightly. "You were a SEAL." It wasn't a question. Sarah met his gaze and gave a small nod. "That explains a lot," Rodriguez said with respect. "Those guys had no idea what they were getting into. Still, I'm sorry you had to deal with this, especially in front of your son." "Thank you, officer." As the police cars drove away with the three men in custody, Sarah knelt down in front of Daniel. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking slightly. "Are you okay, buddy? You really hurt those men, Mom." "I know, I'm sorry you had to see that, but they didn't give me a choice. When someone pulls a knife and threatens us, I have to protect you. That's my job as your mom." "Were you scared?" Sarah considered the question. "No, honey, I was trained for situations like that, but I was worried about you being scared." "I was scared," Daniel admitted, "but then I saw you and you were like a superhero." Sarah smiled sadly. I'm not a superhero. I'm just someone who learned how to defend herself and the people she loves. And I really, really hope this never happens again. They went home, skipping the pharmacy for now. That evening, Sarah made Daniel's favorite dinner, spaghetti and meatballs, and they watched a movie together. She could tell he was processing what had happened, the way his mind was working through it all. At bedtime, he asked, "Mom, what else did you do in the Navy?" Sarah sat on the edge of his bed. "I did a lot of things, buddy. I protected people. I went on important missions. I worked with a team of very brave men and women." "Why did you stop?" "Because being your mom is more important than anything else. And I wanted to be here for you, every day, not halfway around the world." Daniel thought about this. "Those men said mean things about me." "I know. But you didn't let them hurt me." "I will never let anyone hurt you, Daniel. Never." He hugged her tightly. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart." After he fell asleep, Sarah sat in her living room with a cup of tea, thinking about the day's events. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is James Rodriguez. I got your number from the police report. I hope that's okay. I wanted you to know that Tyler Brennan's father is already making noise. He's hired a high-profile lawyer from Richmond. They're planning to fight the charges and claim his son was the victim. I thought you should know what's coming." Sarah stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Thank you for the heads up, Officer Rodriguez." She set down her phone and looked again at the photograph of her SEAL team. She had walked away from that life to find peace, but it seemed peace had other plans. The story hit the local news by Thursday morning. Violent altercation in Pine Ridge parking lot leaves 3 men injured. Sarah watched the segment with growing discomfort as she got ready for work. The news didn't mention the knife or the witnesses. Instead, it focused on the fact that 3 young men required medical treatment after an encounter with a local woman. By the time Sarah dropped Daniel at school, her phone was ringing constantly. Friends from town, concerned neighbors, even the principal calling to discuss the incident and whether Daniel needed counseling. Sarah went to work at Pine Ridge Fitness Center, where she taught self-defense classes 3 days a week. Her boss, Marcus Green, a former Marine in his 50s, met her at the door. "Sarah, I need to talk to you in my office." She followed him into the small room at the back of the gym. Marcus closed the door and gestured for her to sit. "I got a call this morning from our corporate office," he said heavily. "They've seen the news coverage. They're concerned about liability, about the image of having someone involved in a violent incident teaching classes here." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "Marcus, I was defending myself and my son from 3 men, one of whom had a knife. The police arrested them, not me." "I know that. I believe you. But the optics," he sighed. "They want you to take a leave of absence until this all blows over." "How am I supposed to pay my bills on a leave of absence?" "I'm sorry, Sarah. My hands are tied." She walked out of the gym in a daze. This wasn't just about 3 entitled young men anymore. This was her livelihood, her reputation in the town she'd chosen as home. The next blow came Friday afternoon. Sarah received a certified letter from the law offices of Brennan and Associates in Richmond. Tyler Brennan was suing her for assault, battery, and emotional distress. They were seeking $200,000 in damages. The letter described Sarah as an unstable individual with military combat training who unleashed excessive and unnecessary violence upon 3 unarmed young men in a public setting, causing severe physical and psychological trauma. Sarah read it 3 times, each time feeling her anger build. Unarmed, there had been a knife. Unprovoked, they had surrounded her and her son. That evening, Officer Rodriguez called her personally. "Mrs. Mitchell, I wanted to give you an update. The prosecutor's office is moving forward with charges against Brennan and his friends. Assault, brandishing a weapon, menacing. But I have to tell you, Brennan's father is well connected. He's putting pressure on the department, on the DA's office. There are people suggesting this whole thing might get dropped." "How can they drop it? There are witnesses, there's video." "I know, And I'm fighting for this case, I promise you. But I wanted you to be prepared for what might happen. After the call, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with her head in her hands. Daniel was at a friend's house for a playdate, giving her a rare moment alone. The walls felt like they were closing in. Her phone rang again. This time it was a number she recognized, her former commanding officer, Captain Michael Thornton. Sarah Mitchell, is that really you making headlines in Virginia? Despite everything, Sarah smiled at the familiar voice. Hello, Captain. I saw the news report. Took me about 5 seconds to figure out what really happened. 3 guys tried to mess with you, and they learned a very painful lesson. It's turning into a nightmare, Mike. They're suing me. I've been suspended from work, and the guy's father is trying to make the criminal charges disappear. Of course he is. Rich people always think they can buy their way out of consequences. Thornton paused. Sarah, you know you have resources, right? You're not alone in this. I left the team 6 months ago. I can't ask. You didn't leave the Brotherhood, Sarah. Once a SEAL, always a SEAL. We take care of our own. His voice became firm. I'm going to make some calls, and I want you to contact someone for me. His name is David Chen. He's a lawyer in D.C., former Navy JAG officer, served with us in Iraq. He owes me about a dozen favors. I'm calling one in for you. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. Mike, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, just fight back. That's what we trained you to do. That weekend, Sarah met with David Chen in his Washington, D.C. office. He was a sharp-eyed man in his 40s, with graying hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. Captain Thornton filled me in on the basics, Chen said, reviewing the police report and the lawsuit. This is pretty straightforward. You acted in self-defense. There's video evidence, multiple witnesses, and a weapon was involved. The criminal charges against Brennan and his friends should stick. Should. Brennan's father is Walter Brennan, one of the most successful defense attorneys in Virginia. He's represented senators, corporate executives, you name it. He has connections everywhere. But here's what he doesn't have, the full story of who you are. Sarah frowned. What do you mean? Chen leaned forward. Right now, the narrative is 3 young men injured by aggressive woman. That's the story Brennan Sr. wants to tell. But what if we tell the truth? What if we tell the story of a decorated Navy SEAL, a war hero who served her country with distinction, who was simply protecting her son from 3 thugs who attacked them in a parking lot? I don't want that kind of attention. I understand, but sometimes the truth is the best weapon we have. And Sarah, you have nothing to be ashamed of. You served honorably. You earned one of the hardest military distinctions in the world. The public deserves to know who they're really dealing with. Sarah thought about Daniel, about the quiet life she'd wanted to build. But she also thought about the injustice of what was happening, about letting these men get away with their actions because they had money and connections. David Chen moved quickly. By Monday morning, he had filed a countersuit against Tyler Brennan for assault, emotional distress, and defamation. But more importantly, he had contacted a journalist friend at the Washington Post. The article appeared on Wednesday, and it changed everything. Navy SEAL veteran defends son against armed attackers, then gets sued. The story laid out the facts methodically. Sarah's 12 years of service, her deployment history to Afghanistan and Iraq, the specialized training that made her one of fewer than 20 women ever to earn the SEAL Trident, her retirement to care for her son after her husband's death. Then it detailed the parking lot incident, the witnesses, the knife, the security footage. It included statements from Officer Rodriguez and several bystanders. It showed Tyler Brennan's criminal record, which included 2 previous assault charges that had been quietly dismissed, likely due to his father's influence. The article went viral within hours. By Thursday, the story had been picked up by every major news outlet. Cable news shows were debating it. Social media exploded with support for Sarah. A GoFundMe page appeared without her knowledge, raising money for her legal defense. Within 2 days, it had collected over $300,000. The pressure on the prosecutor's office became overwhelming. On Friday, The DA held a press conference announcing that they would aggressively pursue all charges against Tyler Brennan and his associates. Furthermore, they were investigating Walter Brennan's attempts to interfere with the investigation. Tyler Brennan's lawyer quietly withdrew the civil lawsuit against Sarah. But Sarah's vindication came with an unexpected consequence. On Saturday morning, as she was making breakfast for Daniel, there was a knock at her door. She opened it to find Captain Thornton standing on her porch in civilian clothes, accompanied by a woman in a Navy uniform. "Mike, what are you doing here?" "Can we come in, Sarah?" She led them to the living room. Daniel, recognizing military bearing when he saw it, sat quietly on the stairs, watching. "Sarah, this is Commander Patricia Walsh from Naval Special Warfare Command," Thornton said. "She has something to discuss with you." Commander Walsh smiled warmly. "Mrs. Mitchell, first let me say that everyone in the SEAL community is proud of how you handled yourself. You represented us well." "Thank you, ma'am." "Second, I want to talk to you about coming back." Sarah blinked. "I'm sorry." "We're expanding our training programs, particularly for female candidates. We need experienced operators who can mentor the next generation. We're looking for instructors who can teach not just tactics, but the mindset needed to succeed in special operations." Walsh leaned forward. "You could be based here on the East Coast, home most nights. You'd have a regular schedule. You could actually be present for your son while still serving." Sarah glanced at Daniel, who was listening intently. "I left because I couldn't do both, be a SEAL and be a mom. That hasn't changed." "It has, actually," Thornton interjected. "The Navy has changed. We're adapting, creating positions that allow work-life balance because we need people like you. We can't afford to lose our best people just because they have families." Commander Walsh pulled out a folder. "This is a proposed position. Training instructor, East Coast Naval Special Warfare Center. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, with occasional weekend exercises. Full benefits, housing allowance suitable for this area. You'd be teaching the skills you've mastered to the next generation of warriors." Sarah took the folder with trembling hands. The offer was generous, more than generous. It would solve her financial problems, give her purpose again, and still let her be there for Daniel. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, take all the time you need." After they left, Daniel came down from the stairs and sat next to his mother on the couch. "Are you going to go back to the Navy, Mom?" "I don't know, buddy. What do you think?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. I think you should do what makes you happy. You're always taking care of me, but you should get to do what you're good at too." Sarah pulled him close. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from my mom." The following Monday, Sarah stood in front of the Pine Ridge Town Council meeting. Word had spread that she would be there, and the community center was packed. Marcus from the gym was there. Emma, the cashier from the grocery store, sat with her grandmother. Officer Rodriguez was in uniform in the back row, and dozens of other Pine Ridge residents filled every available seat. The mayor, a grandfatherly man named Robert Carson, called the meeting to order. "We have a special order of business tonight," he said. "Mrs. Sarah Mitchell, would you please come forward?" Sarah walked to the front of the room, confused. Mayor Carson smiled. "Mrs. Mitchell, this town owes you an apology. When the news first broke about the parking lot incident, many of us jumped to conclusions. We didn't know the full story. We didn't know who you are or what you've done for this country." He held up a framed certificate. "On behalf of the town of Pine Ridge, we want to present you with this certificate of appreciation for your service to our nation. We're honored to have a hero living among us." The room erupted in applause. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she accepted the certificate. Marcus stood up. "I also want to publicly apologize, Sarah. The corporate office has reversed its decision. Not only are you reinstated, but we're expanding your classes and giving you a raise. We want you to develop a full self-defense program for our community." More applause. Officer Rodriguez approached the microphone. I'd also like to add that the Pine Ridge Police Department would like to work with Mrs. Mitchell to develop better training for our officers in de-escalation and defensive tactics. We could learn a lot from her. As Sarah looked out at the faces of her neighbors, people who had doubted her, then stood by her, who were now celebrating her, she felt something shift inside her. She had come to Pine Ridge looking for a quiet place to hide from her past, but maybe that wasn't what she needed. Maybe what she needed was a place where she could be her whole self, both the warrior and the mother, the protector and the teacher. 2 weeks later, Sarah signed the contract with Naval Special Warfare Command. Her first day as a training instructor would begin in January. Until then, she would continue teaching at the gym and working with the police department. Tyler Brennan and his friends pleaded guilty to reduced charges and received suspended sentences with community service and mandatory anger management classes. Walter Brennan faced professional censure from the Virginia Bar Association for attempting to interfere with a criminal investigation, a stain on his previously spotless reputation. On Christmas Eve, Sarah and Daniel sat by their small tree in the living room. She had framed the certificate from the town and hung it on the wall next to her SEAL team photo. "Mom," Daniel asked, "do you think those men learned their lesson?" Sarah thought about it. "I hope so, buddy. Sometimes people need to face real consequences before they understand that their actions have impacts. Maybe this will make them think twice before treating someone else poorly. And you're going to teach other people to be strong like you." "That's the plan." Daniel smiled. "I think that's cool. My mom, the teacher of Navy SEALs." Sarah laughed. "Well, I'll be teaching people who want to become SEALs. Most of them won't make it. It's the hardest training in the world." "But you made it." "Yes, I did. Because you're the strongest person I know." Sarah pulled her son close, looking at the twinkling lights on the tree. "I'm strong because I have someone worth being strong for." Outside, snow began to fall on Pine Ridge, covering the small town in white. And inside, a Navy SEAL and her son sat together, ready for whatever challenges the future might bring, knowing that real strength wasn't about fighting, it was about protecting what mattered most. The men who had attacked Sarah that day in the parking lot had learned a hard lesson. Never underestimate a quiet woman with nothing to prove, but everything to protect. And the town of Pine Ridge had learned something too, that heroes don't always look like what you expect, and that sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones living ordinary lives right next door.